And my name's Andrew Jacobs. I was chairing in this room yesterday, which is why I'm really pleased to be able to chair this session as well. Yesterday we were looking at AR, VR, mixed reality, we're looking at artificial intelligence, and as a natural segue, the one thing that we didn't get onto in a lot of detail, partly, was around chatbots and how they work as a form of AI. So I'm really pleased. I was planning on coming to watch this session, and now I get to watch it from up here, which is great. I'm really pleased to be able to introduce Jamie Good, who understands all of the chatbot, the technical side, social media, etc. I mean, I play some of that stuff, but this guy knows his way around, so I'm really looking forward to this. Jamie's going to go through some slides, and we'll have some questions. He's also going to get you to ask each other some questions. So if you're sitting on your own, you're not going to be on your own. You are going to have to move and then sit next to somebody else. So just pre-warning people, the odd one person sitting around. Okay, Jamie, over to you.
Thanks so much, Andrew. Thanks for coming. I know it's the last day and people might have flights or trains to get to shortly, so if you have to leave, no issue there. And like you said, I will have you doing some interaction, so if you are miles away from someone else, you might want to move a little closer just to have a bit of discussion. I don't want to be the one talking for the whole hour. I'd like you guys to also share some stories and ideas with each other as well. I have got, of course, slides prepared because that's what you do in your presenter, but if we go off topic a bit or go off the slides, I'm fine with that. I will be showing you a couple of chatbots, the one that I built for this conference, and then one that we'll see working in real time. So I'll be switching back and forth between screens a couple of times as well, and hopefully all the tech works out for us. How many of you tested the chatbot that I built for the conference? Awesome. And how many of you broke the bot, which means it stopped working for you? Awesome. We'll talk about that too. Well, I'm glad that you took it for a spin. The first thing I wanted to do is make sure that we're all on the same page in terms of what a chatbot is, because it's new for quite a lot of people. So I found the simplest description I could get, and basically a chatbot is a service powered by rules and sometimes artificial intelligence that you interact with via a chat interface like Messenger, Telegram, just a texting, iMessage, or whatever you have on your phone. So it's pretty simple in that description. They've been around for a long time. They are not new, but they're having kind of a renaissance and a resurgence because of our mobile devices and how often we use them. Where do you find chatbots? This is one question I get a lot, so I thought I'd deal with that right off the bat as well. A few places, as I've mentioned: Messenger, Slack, Telegram, Kik, which is out of Waterloo where I live in Canada, and just text messages. These are not the only places, but these are the most common. Messenger probably has the most chatbots on any, if you look at these platforms, Messenger probably has the most chatbots available. And Slack, we're going to see a bit later, one of the chatbots that I have used inside Slack for learning and development. Anyone here not familiar with messaging platforms or text messaging? We're all good with that? And what do they do? Well, they can do pretty much anything, but common use cases right now for chatbots: weather, news, to-do lists, reminders, finance, ordering food. These are the types of things that are being used for chatbots right now in a lot of cases. And there, of course, are like thousands of other use cases you could have, but these are the ones that are most common and that you might be using yourself. So that was my question that I wanted to start off with. Is anyone currently using a chatbot at all? It doesn't have to be regularly or has ever used one before? Oh, awesome. That's great. That's more than I expected. I'm happy to see that. So if you have, can you maybe just share what the chatbot was and for what purpose it served? Anyone want to let us know what you were using it for? I saw a bunch of hands, but I can't remember where. Yes? Ordering pizza. Awesome. You're a simple man. Yes? Checking bank balances, bills, etc. So finance, yeah. Who else put their hand up? Yep. Customer service. It's very common in hotels nowadays. Sorry?
The tax office is doing it.
Tax offices, okay. And anyone else? One more? Playing jokes on people. Okay, awesome. So there are lots of uses. I'm glad to see that you guys have been using them. That's awesome. So other piece I'd like to just have up here in terms of definitions, so we're on the same page with this too, is artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, or AI, as you'll hear it referred to most often, is the simulation of human intelligence processes. So for example, learning, reasoning, self-correction by machines, especially computer systems. So I said at the definition for chatbot that sometimes AI is involved, and it depends on kind of the level of what you want to do with a chatbot and how much you want AI to be involved. One of the things I was saying to Andrew before we started is that the issue with AI is that sometimes it can go a bit awry, and you can get some responses back to the user that you don't want. So I kind of shy away from it just because I don't think AI is where it should be today in terms of being able to respond to anything that we throw at it. So where can you find artificial intelligence? Here's a few common examples: Google Maps, your email, airplanes use it, Facebook use it, chatbots use it, and Alexa. I saw in the expo that a lot of booths were giving away Amazon Echoes, I guess they're called, which has Alexa built in, which means there's a whole bunch of people who want Amazon to listen to every conversation they have in their house, apparently. I'm not one of those people. So what do we use AI for? Here's some common examples. So when you're using Google Maps or Waze, then you're getting a faster commute, hopefully, when you're driving to work. In email, you'll get a spam filter that will be powered by AI. Smart replies. So I don't know if any of you have noticed in your Gmail or in LinkedIn, after you get a message from someone, there's some choices at the bottom of an instant reply that you can give, or a smart reply. Facial recognition, a very popular app right now is the Google Arts and Culture, where you can show your face and it will show you an historical artwork that looks like you. So this is facial recognition. Ordering items like pizza, and then just answering questions like saying, Alexa, what's the weather like today, for example. Okay? Anyone currently using any AI-powered tool? How many of you use Siri? So a few more hands go up, okay? So just turn to your neighbor quickly and share which AI-powered tools you are using and for what purpose. I'll just give you 2 minutes for that, and let the person know beside you what you're using AI for and the purpose. Okay. Sounds like there's lots of uses for AI in this room. All right, we'll get some examples of what you use AI for. Anyone want to volunteer what you're using or what tool and what for, what the purpose is? Anyone? Yes? Netflix? Giving you recommendations? Yeah. Is it always correct? Yeah, for me, it gives me weird recommendations too. But I think it's because my partner watches sci-fi too much. Anyone else? Yes? For smart lighting, you have like Philips Hue or something like that, yeah? Anyone else? Yep.
I use Google Home for the kids' questions they ask.
Oh, awesome. I know if you heard that, he said he uses Google Home for the kids' questions that they throw at him all the time. That's actually pretty awesome. Yes? For the Amazon Kindle, yes. I have the old school Kindle, so I don't get that, unfortunately. Yes?
We use it internally to decide in our company who cleans the coffee machine.
Oh, I love it. So they use it in their company internally to decide who has to clean the coffee maker. That's great. That was the #1 problem at the startup I worked at last year. Who cleans the coffee and who makes the coffee? That's great. So it's a part of our life. It's quite common, and I don't think we recognize sometimes how common it is in our lives. So that's great. Thank you. So I just want to reiterate the definitions before we go forward so that everybody knows in case it's new for you. Chatbot is a service powered by rules, sometimes artificial intelligence that you interact with via a chat interface. In that little GIF picture there on the side, you can see kind of an example. It's pretty simple. It's basically like having a conversation with a bot by texting. And then just to reiterate the definition of AI, and then I have a picture of Google Maps there, one of the examples we talked about. It's a simulation. It's simulating basically human intelligence, but by a machine. And then with machine learning, which I also want to just touch on briefly, because sometimes people talk about AI and machine learning and they're not sure what the difference is, so I thought I'd just put in a slide for that. This is from a woman who worked at Intel, and I like what she says about the differences here. AI is basically the intelligence, how we make machines intelligence, while machine learning is the implementation of the compute methods that support it. So the way she likes to think of it is that AI is the science, and machine learning is the algorithms that make the machine smarter. Okay? So the enabler for AI is machine learning. Hope that helps. And machine learning, at the company I worked for last year, we used it, of course, just to make the algorithms and the machines smarter and smarter for the ad tech that we were working in. And so with a chatbot, you would hope that the machine learning makes the AI smarter so that it gives the best responses to the user and recognizes what the user is sending to it at all times, which doesn't always happen. Anyone had a kind of wonky or crazy AI experience so far where it got back something that was a bit odd, like in your Google Home, for example? Yeah, of course, because it's not up to speed yet. Awesome. So, question, what do you think is the most common activity on a smartphone? Any guesses? Texting? Browsing? YouTube? Surfing? Clicking on photos? Searching for cat photos? Facebook? Most common activity on a smartphone, 80% of adults text. 22 billion texts are sent every day worldwide, and this is not including Messenger and other texting applications. That's an insane number, and it grows all the time. And so this is one of the reasons why I like to dig into chatbots for learning and development, because it's something that most people are already doing and don't need to learn how to do, and already have a tool in their hand that they can do it on. That's one of the reasons I really like chatbots. Now, what do you think is the average open rate for email? Any guesses? Percentage-wise? 0.5%? Anyone have a guess of percentage for email open rate? Commercial, or it could be personal too. 30, 15, 20, not very high, right? Average open rate for email, average open rates across industries is between 13 and 27%. When I worked on a marketing team at Global Knowledge, we were happy that we got 14% open rates. We usually got less than that. But text messages have a 90% open rate. Another reason why I like them for learning and development and using chatbots, because when you think about it, you want people to engage with the content and the learning experience. If the open rate of a text message is at 90%, you've got a pretty good, starting point at hoping that people will open what you're sending them through the chatbot. I think you probably experience it yourself, that on your phone, when you get a text message, it's really hard to ignore it. Most of the time, we always look at them and we always answer them. And so if the chatbot is doing that, we're hoping then that the same kind of experience will happen for people. Okay? Well, it's not always true, of course, but hopefully better than something like email, for example. The other reason I like chatbots is I always like to say for our learners, or whatever we want to call them these days, that we should be where they are. And where are we a lot of the time during the day? On our phones. It's, for a lot of people, glued to the palm of their hand. I think a lot of people would love it to just be surgically implanted on the wrist. But that's where we are a lot of the time. So why take people out of that place and put them in an LMS on a desktop or somewhere else if they're already inside Messenger, Telegram, or text messaging? You already live there, so why not learn there as well? Here's a graph that also shows why I think it's important to consider messaging and chatbots, is that messaging apps have surpassed social media now in terms of usage worldwide. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all of these things used to be kind of the kings of mobile, but now messaging has surpassed our usage of social media. And so that's where we spend a lot of time. So why not do some learning there as well? And this keeps increasing all the time, actually. I think what is happening is a lot of people are getting what I call app fatigue, where we're just getting tired of so many apps. And so texting is just the thing that we do. It's simple, it's fast, and everybody's doing that. Now, any questions so far before I keep going? I just want to make sure everybody's okay with what I'm talking about. Any questions so far? Are you including SMS? Yes, this includes SMS. Oh, sorry, in terms of an app? Well, this is The focus here is WhatsApp, Messenger, WeChat, and Viber, and these kinds of apps, not just your stock SMS app on your phone like iMessage. It's not including that. If we included that, it would be even higher. I don't know if any of you are familiar with WeChat, but it is the app that is completely taken over in China. And inside that app, I had a discussion with someone about this yesterday, I believe. What I like about it is that people are there ordering pizza, Uber, movie tickets, doing their banking, messaging their friends, pretty much everything in one place. And I think that's a really smart way to think about user experience going forward. I don't know about you, but I really don't like the fact that I have to go in Facebook, and then LinkedIn, and then Twitter, and then Gmail, and then something else to do 3 or 4 things. I would love to just do it all in one place. And that's what WeChat has kind of does for people in China. And I think it's a really smart way of looking at how we use our phones these days. The other thing that I like to say, I shared this yesterday in Miles's session. It's Miles, correct? I've met so many people the last couple of days, is make it frictionless. The more barriers you have in the learning experience, the more excuses people have to bail and to just skip out on it. And so one of the things I like to say is the less clicks, the less taps you have, the better it is for your learner. You know yourself that if you're in an app or on your phone and you keep tapping with your thumb and you're still not where you want to be and you still don't have the thing that you want, you're probably just going to stop. And so with chatbots, what I like is it's quite frictionless. You're not doing a lot of extra things. You're just texting something. You're getting a response back. You're texting something, but you're not having to click here, find another tab. And so it's frictionless, and I really like that about chatbots and just texting in general. Other thing tied to frictionless is how many login and passwords do you still want to have in your life? Anybody want some new logins and passwords, right? You got enough already. And how it's so difficult to remember them all. And so the other thing I like is that if you're already on Messenger, if you're already texting in iMessage, you don't need another login and a password to use the chatbot. It's already just there. This is another thing that I like. It's less barrier to entry and people using it. So this is another thing I like. We don't have to remember, once we're in and we're using the chatbot and we maybe forget and we come back 2 weeks later, we don't need to try to log in again and remember our password, etc. So this is another thing that I like. So before we keep going, I'd like you to have some more conversation with your neighbor again. I've given you a bit of information about chatbots so far, and how might you include chatbots into your instructional strategies? I've given some ideas here in terms of instructional strategies, like reminders, maybe polling, performance support, practice and assessment. What do you think, just in sort of maybe a basic level or some basic ideas, you think you could do with your instructional strategies that would include chatbots? I'll give you a few minutes to share that with your neighbor, and we'll use I've been to an agile focus conference before, and one thing that they do that I thought was quite great so that I don't have to yell at you is I will raise my hand when the time is up, and if you see my hand up, then please stop talking and also raise your hand, and then when someone else sees those hands, then they'll raise their hand, and then eventually everybody will have their hand up and we'll be ready to continue, okay? And so I don't have to yell at you. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to think. It worked. I didn't have to yell at you. It's awesome. Okay, what are some ideas that you shared with your neighbor? Be brave. Yes?
Find trainings.
Find training?
So I need training about TCP/IP, and then the chatbot can return a list of training that I have in my LMS system.
Mm-hmm.
So give a feedback after the training, post-training.
Okay. So he had 2 ideas where the chatbot could retrieve the information for you, the learning, and then after the training you could get feedback. Awesome. Yes?
I was going to use the reinforcement mechanism.
Reinforcement?
Feedback as well, so to make sure you're doing the practice or you're connecting it to real life work.
Okay, so feedback and making sure that people are actually applying the learning to their work. Yeah?
Induction, offering an employee, ask questions, are you getting what you want, and you get that response back.
Okay, so a couple of the examples so far, I just want to point out there's kind of like, Andrew and I were talking about this earlier, there's push and there's pull, right? Where people pull the information from the chatbot or the chatbot pushes the information out. So that was an example of pulling information, those examples, yeah? Any other, yes?
Railway checking bits of equipment. We had it connected to GPS.
Okay.
So as the maintenance technicians approached the box with a collection of stuff in, it came up with the maintenance schedule of what needed to be checked that was in that box.
Good idea. So she's saying tying it to a GPS on the phone of maintenance people for certain equipment and machines, and when they are in proximity of that machine, they automatically get some messages that are basically performance support, correct? I had a friend who did this at TELUS with their salespeople. So if they had a sales call, like they were from Toronto, for example, and they had a sales meeting in Montreal, the GPS on their phone would recognize that they were close to the sales meeting, and they would automatically get some performance support, like reminders about this company, the deal so far, what they had talked about in email, so they were going into the meeting prepared, kind of just-in-time performance support. I saw another hand. Yes? Treasure hunt. That's a good idea. Yeah, that'd be fun. Anyone else? One other idea maybe someone has? Okay, so think about the push and the pull, because they're both possible, but I believe that most people would probably like to use it for the pull, for the performance support, the just-in-time, on-demand type of learning, which is actually not that difficult to build. Thanks for sharing your ideas. I have one use case here that I read about last year that someone was using a chatbot for addiction recovery. And I thought, wow, that's a really interesting thing that I would have never considered. And so with the chatbot, people who are going through addiction recovery were able to get automated daily reinforcement that was sent to them at a certain time or certain intervals. They were able to get triggers about self-monitoring, like reflection, basically. Support and resource locator, so that's the pull, texting the chatbot and saying, where can I go if I'm feeling not so great, for example, and then the chatbot would reply to where the nearest places are for help and resources. And then a connection to support network. This is something that is becoming more common, where chatbots are being used to support people through their mental health struggles and addiction recovery. So I thought that was a very interesting use case for a chatbot. And it could be quite simple. And for people in addiction recovery, I think what would be nice about this is it's a little bit anonymous as well. They're just interacting with a basically non-human chatbot, so they don't necessarily feel maybe so reserved or shy to maybe share or reach out. So I think that's a pretty cool use case. I'm just going to quickly show, in case it didn't seem like everybody, of course I wasn't expecting, would use my chatbot here. So I just want to show you. This is just inside Messenger. I made the chatbot available in Telegram and Messenger for those who are non-UK like myself, and I don't have a UK number. And so here you'll see the chatbot that I created is basically to remember your takeaways. Let me just go up here a little bit here. So there's a keyword. I got to go up one more there. So with my chatbot, the reason I built it is because how many of you go to a conference and then a week later forget everything you learned? And I was a little bit tired of that, so I'm like, oh, this would be great for a chatbot. So what you will do is, like, if you're sitting in this session now and I say something that you want to remember and maybe see if you can do it back home at work, then you would text the chatbot the keyword ready, and then it replies, hey, you've got a key takeaway. Reply with your takeaway using 4 to 6 words maximum. Example, habit forming to help people learn. So I typed in modern workplace learning means user control, because I'm a fan of Jane Hart. And then the chatbot replies, what a great takeaway. When do you want me to remind you next week of what you just learned? Reply with one choice, Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. So you just reply with M, T, or W. So I replied with Monday. Please let me know when we can dig a little deeper with this takeaway. Reply with one letter. So A for 1 hour, B for 2 hours, C for 4 hours, or D for 8 hours. I chose C for 4 hours because I was thinking by that time I'll be back in my hotel and I can deal with this. And then it continues. So basically, I started with a basic concept that I just want you to be able to capture your takeaways and be reminded of them a week later. And then I thought, well, why don't I add a little bit more to it? So what happens is in 4 hours, the chatbot will come back and start asking me a few more questions like, what are some obstacles that could prevent you from making this takeaway a reality back at work? Who can help you? What kind of support would you need? So that you start thinking about making the takeaway a reality back home at work. And then what I will get next Monday when I'm back in Canada is a reminder of the takeaway. So modern workplace learning means user control. And then the chatbot will take me through another little process that helps me go a little bit deeper with it. Like, have you talked to someone already about this at work? Who's the person that's going to help you with this? And have you talked to them? Like a few things like that, just so that it's not just reminding you of the takeaway, but it's kind of pushing you to do something about it and make it actually like a useful thing that you take back to work. So that's what my idea was with this. And for those of you who took it for a spin, thank you so much. I knew it would break because for me, you'll see, for example, reply with one choice. Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. I have to do that because I don't have artificial intelligence behind it and some robot that will just respond to anything. That would just be a little bit out of control for me. I needed it simpler. And so in giving choices, then I'm able to basically control the decision tree experience that the person is having with the bot. Otherwise, it gets a little bit out of control. And the same thing with 1 hour, 2 hour, 4 hours, 8 hours. By replying with a letter, I'm able to take the user through an experience that hopefully doesn't basically break for them. But of course, people always break the bot because that's just human nature. Because one of the things that you have to think about with this is I don't want you to feel like you're interacting with a machine. I want you to feel like you're interacting with an actual human being and have it be more of an enjoyable, engaging experience. So you'll see that the way that I've written the scripts, like you've got a key takeaway, what a great takeaway, when do you want me to remind you? I purposely wrote in a way that sounds like you are replying and interacting with a person. It's not super formal. It's not too complicated. It's simple. So that's a good and a bad thing happens because of this. People do feel like they're interacting with a human, and so they start replying more than I've programmed, and then they break the bot. So it's like a good thing and a bad thing because people feel like it's a person, so they just go, hey, this is cool. And then my bot goes, I don't know what you're saying, and it stops. So some of you probably had that experience because I had a notification for about 40 bot exceptions this morning. But it's a good thing that it feels like you're actually interacting with a human. Any questions about this bot that I built? Yes?
What do you think about inundating yourself with reminders? I mean,
Myself or the user?
anyone, yourself.
So his question was, what do I feel about inundating the person with reminders? Like too many notifications on your phone?
You work to prevent it, or what do you think about it?
You're saying basically like too many notifications on your phone?
Yeah, then you stop reading your notifications.
I see, got it. So the question is basically, so I do think about this, of course, because I'm one of those people, even though I'm super into technology and I call myself the digital fluency coach, I absolutely hate notifications on my phone, so I have everything turned off. So I don't want my phone to keep beeping, so I do think about this. And so you'll see, at least what I had it up there, I don't have the bot bugging you too often. Like there are a few nudges that you get, but if you text the chatbot today a takeaway, it will not bother you again until the day that you told it to bother you. And if you don't respond that day, it stops. I think there's a couple of nudges that I added where it will say, hey, are you still there? Because it's asked you a question you haven't responded, but that only happens once. There are some chatbots that I've used where it's asked me a question, I have not been with my phone or I didn't notice, and so then it asks, are you still there? And then I'm still not there because maybe I'm sleeping or I really like to nap, so something like that. And then it asks me again, hey, are you still there? And then when I get my phone, I see all these notifications. I find that bothersome, so I don't design that for my chatbot to do that. It's maybe one reminder, and sometimes not at all, because you guys have a life, right? I don't want the chatbot to be so annoying that you won't use it. It has to be an enjoyable experience. So you have to think about that when you write the scripts and when you design. And if people just don't respond, so I used this at DevLearn 2 years ago, and Vegas is a very different city in that it takes you about 45 minutes to go from the conference back to your hotel room because the hotel is so humongous. And so a lot of people just would not get back to the bot. They wouldn't respond because they would be networking and meeting people, which you're supposed to do at a conference, and then they get back to their hotel super late, and then they would just go straight to bed. And so that created a problem for the bot because it was waiting for a response, didn't get it, and then the next day, it considered the next response a mistake, and it would just stop. So it's things you have to think about and play with, and you never know really until you release it out into the wild and see what happens. So that's how I approach it. I believe that everything we do should always be iterative, and we should always be improving. So when I throw this out into the wild and it breaks on like 45 people this morning, that's the way it goes. It's tech. And I'm not a coder, so. I saw another hand, yes.
How do you get started with this, though? Because there's all the applications that you talk about here, but then it's like, how do I get started when you say, I've written this and put it on Facebook?
Okay, so he asked me, how do I get started? I am using a tool out of Utah. It's called Mobile Coach. They have created a tool where someone like me who doesn't program and doesn't code can still build a chatbot. And so I went down there and I got certified, and you have to kind of know a little bit about how programming works, but you don't actually have to use Python or JavaScript or anything. And it's basically the work that I had to do was writing the scripts, which is the content that the user is going to get and the answers that the user is going to get, deciding what order they go in, all of those kinds of things. And so that's how I got started, but that was 2.5, 3 years ago. Currently, there are lots of DIY tools out there for you to like build your own bot without coding knowledge. But the thing that you have to watch then is how much will the server fees be if you get lots of users? Will that bot that you create be possibly used on Messenger, Telegram, Kik as well, or is it only going to be on Messenger? Those are things you have to watch. I chose Mobile Coach, as I was telling Andrew earlier, because you can use it in the text messaging platform that you already have on your phone. You don't have to download another app. And like, if I'm going to preach frictionless learning, then that means I don't want people to have to download more stuff on their phone to be able to use it. So that's why I chose Mobile Coach. Okay? A lot of people ask me, what do you measure? There's lots of things you can measure. These are just some basic things to consider when you're looking at a chatbot, like active and engaged rates. How many people are active with the bot and how many people are engaging with it? That's very simple, but it's nice to know. So for example, when I saw that people were signing up for my chatbot here at the conference, then I went in to check, are people actually engaging with it, or did they just sign up because they think this is kind of cool and then they stopped? So those are things that's a very simple thing that I first went to look at. Another thing is you want to look at confusion triggers. So basically things that will confuse the user or confuse the bot. And this is what I mentioned earlier, where someone will send a response to my bot that I haven't programmed in a script, and then the bot breaks because it doesn't recognize that text because I haven't fed it to the program in advance. So you want to look at, so what I looked at this morning when I saw that so many people had broken the bot, I wanted to see what people were typing and texting my bot that was breaking it. And I started to see, oh, people are just like liking this, and they were saying, oh, this is cool, oh, this is great, thanks for building this, Jamie. So it wasn't anything crazy, but I didn't anticipate so much of that, and so it was kind of a confusion trigger for the bot. Then the other thing to think about, which you're kind of, his question was kind of getting at, is conversation steps. How many texts does the user have to send the bot before it gets something useful? So this is the problem with, I don't know how it works when you order pizza with a chatbot here, but when Domino's first released their chatbot for pizza, people thought, oh, this is so cool. But then they realized it took 50 texts to get what they wanted, because the bot would say, would you like extra cheese? No. Would you like this? No. How many toppings do you want? 4. Do you want it delivered? Yes. By the time you do all that, you could have already been on the phone and had your pizza. So that's the thing you have to consider. Like, are you just doing it because it's cool, but it's too much work for the user? Or is it going to be something that can be simple and quick and frictionless? Another thing to consider, average number of conversations per user. So in my chatbot, it's basically you use it at a conference and then you're done really with it. So I don't expect people to have long, engaging conversations over weeks with mine, but some bots are built for continuous use, like booking flights, for example. And so you want to measure, did someone book a flight with your chatbot once and never use it again? Or do they keep using it every time they have to fly? So how much is that happening? And then retention. So if you're using a bot for the weather and you think, oh, this is really cool, it's telling me the weather, but you only use it for 2 days and then you stop, it's not really a successful bot for that company. But if you're using it 30 days later or 2 months later, then that means you are liking the bot, it's providing value for you, and you're engaged. So that's another thing to consider. Make sense? Did I see a hand? Yes.
And that is, so how do you then fix it if there's many different comments from the people? Yeah, how do you go about it?
So his question was, when I have confusion triggers that are sent to the bot and is confusing the bot, how do I fix that? This morning in Shannon's session, I was on my computer instead of listening to what she had to say. Oh, sorry, Shannon, because I had to deal with this. In the program that I use, so I'm not sure about all the others that are out there, I can just go in and send somebody the next scheduled message so that they just keep going, or I can send them like a custom reply, which I did for a few people. One person, for example, as you saw on the example, like the page that I showed you, you have to text my chatbot ready and then your takeaway. But some people were just automatically texting their takeaways without ready. Well, the bot's not ready for that. And so I saw all this text in red, and then I realized that someone was sending all these takeaways, but the bot wasn't capturing them. It was just, what is this? What is this? What is this? And it didn't know what to do with it. So then I did a custom reply to that person. I said, don't forget, you have to use this keyword first and then your takeaway. And I can do that as well in the platform. But that also means that you have to be ready for that, right? Like if I were, I don't know, let's say I skipped out on the conference today and I went to the Tate in the British Museum, I didn't have my computer with me, I wouldn't be able to do this, and people would be stuck when, like, this bot sucks, it doesn't work, right? Like if you're gonna put it out there into the world, you have to be ready for the admin part as well, right? That's a good question, actually. Thank you. So this is the bot I briefly mentioned. I know a few guys down near me in Hamilton, Ontario that have built this chatbot for Slack. I believe it's expanded since, but they started for Slack called Obi, and they were marketing it as the replacement for the LMS, which is a grand statement. But basically what they were trying to do is provide a frictionless, easy, convenient way for people to access learning and learn inside Slack, which is where they already live. So in the startup that I worked in last year, Slack was like we used it all the time. We had 95 channels and everybody was on Slack all day. So I used Obi to create learning inside Slack for people so that they didn't have to go elsewhere to get that learning. So there's just a kind of a GIF screenshot here that shows how you just, inside Slack, you text Ovi, you can ask for information, and he will retrieve it from a Google Drive or Dropbox or whatever that you have hooked up to the API in the background. So we use Google Drive, in Google Drive in the startup that I was at. So I hooked up Google Drive and our Google Wiki to Obi, and so if someone wanted to know something about sales or about our product, they would just type it to Obi, and then he would retrieve it for them, which is something I think you were saying, and then just pull it into Slack for them, and then they would just open the link to that document. So just instead of leaving Slack and going over to the wiki and then searching there, you just do it here, It's that where they live kind of scenario. Yes?
So how would this work if they're like multitasking? If they were doing, have like lines of different stuff?
If they were, so I'm not sure I understand your question.
So if they were learning about marketing.
Oh, 4 different topics, for example?
Yeah, so they've gone on a marketing course, but then they've also gone on a leadership course.
Oh, okay. So she's asking if someone is going, for example, learning about marketing and leadership and something else, does the chatbot get confused? Well, it doesn't. This is programmed in such a way that when you set it up, it recognizes keywords. So if someone says, I want to continue in my leadership training, Obi pulls up basically choices. And it's like leadership training 1, 2, 3, marketing 1, 2, 3, and then it just asks you to reply with a number for which one of those trainings you want, and then it gives you that at the spot that you last left. So it's set up in a way that it doesn't get confused that way. It is both push and pull. I used it for push, where our business development representatives were pretty bad at emails and sending out emails for trying to get in new clients, prospecting emails basically. And so I used Obi to deliver to them how to write better email course inside Slack. And what I liked about it is they did it on their own time. So once you start, if you get busy and you get on a call, you just stop and then you go back in later and you say, okay, Obi, I want to continue. And until you're finished, you do it in your own time. So some people did it in like an hour and some people did it over the course of a week. I mean, it didn't matter to me, just as long as they got it finished. And then at the end, Obi would deliver a quiz to them. So it's pretty cool. So again, with your neighbor, consider low-hanging fruit. Where could a chatbot help people in your organization learn? You don't have to think big. Where are some simple ways that you could use a chatbot in your workplace? Andrew shared with me in the last time that we were talking, it would be nice to have a chatbot that answers recruitment questions that happen constantly, and just get the chatbot to do that instead of bothering the HR people all the time. I think that's a really nice and simple use. So consider the low-hanging fruit. Where could a chatbot help people in your org learn? When time's up, I'll put my hand up again. Okay, so share with your neighbor. Where do you think you could do that? Oh, it works so well. Any examples you want to share? Yes?
Distribution of information, distribution of materials. People come and ask you, where is this, where is that? Well, great thing.
Excellent. So distribution of learning materials, great. And yes? Yep. Oh, sorry, I didn't see both hands. There's like a bright light in my face, sorry. Yeah, sure, go for it. Onboarding? Onboarding for mobile coach is the most common use case for their chatbot. Yep. HR?
But the question I have is, if we have an HR policy document, in what way is it pre-processed, or what would it be pre-process your information to get into your box?
So he's asking how do you, so for HR information as an example, how do you pre-process or get the information into your bot? There's a number of ways. So with Obi, for example, all the documents are in the Google Drive, and he goes and retrieves based on how whatever you type. And what happens sometimes is he pulls the wrong thing. So you can actually like upvote or downvote for the responses he gives you back. And you're basically, what you're doing is you're training him to get better at bringing the responses back to you. But he's just going into documents that just live in Google Drive. There's nothing changed. There's nothing tweaked or inserted into the chatbot. He's just grabbing them from another spot. Yesterday, in the other session that Andrew was chairing, Microsoft has a tool where you can upload like basically a whole bunch of documents from Wiki and then just kind of automatically build a chatbot. That for me is kind of like, why don't people just, I don't know. I mean, it depends on how difficult and how many steps it takes for someone to get to that information, whether you want to do something like that. For example, we were accessing the wiki through Obi at my company, but I didn't upload the whole wiki to Obi, because that for me was just an extra step I didn't want to take. I would just leave the chatbot to retrieve for people. So it depends on the tool you're using, really. For Mobile Coach, for example, if I want to include documents, photos, videos, I link to them or I just upload them as an attachment. Don't usually do the attachments though, because not a lot of people have a good data plan, and that's a lot of stuff to pull into their text messaging. So I prefer for people to just go to a link, and if they are on their data plan and they don't want to do that, they can just do it later when they get on Wi-Fi. So that's how I approach it. I just put links in instead of uploading documents. You'll see if you tested mine that it takes you to my website a couple of times and some external links, just because there was more information that I could give you in like 140 to 200 characters, for example. So it really depends on the tool and what kind of content you're dealing with, if that makes sense.
How are the links indexed? So it's or links or docs or whatever, but how are the links indexed so that they're keyed to a question?
So the links, so again, like when I built the course where it was pushing the information out, I created a specific Google folder for that I connected to that course. Does that help? Like there isn't really an indexing. The chatbot just recognizes like keywords. So if you say sales support, it will go to the Google Drive and find everything that will have like sales support, for example, in the title or in the content. And that's where you can also be careful, because you might give the user 100 documents, which is not helpful. So you have to think about, do I build separate folders? Do I rename things so that it's easier for people to find? You have to think about all of that stuff in advance. But it's not impossible. So again, I've mentioned this, like Netflix and Uber, because we use these things a lot. People are getting more and more used to this. I believe that we take our consumer habits into the workplace. And so if we are accustomed to using these convenient, easy to use tools that get us what we want quickly, then why are we not doing that with learning in the workplace? Like I mentioned, it's on demand, it's just in time. And I think as Shannon had shared earlier today in her session, with performance support, I think this is where we want to be, right? With on-demand and just-in-time when people want it and what they want. Another reason I like it is because learning, it's in your pocket. It goes with you wherever you go. And so if you are learning with Obi in Slack, for example, and it's on your phone, you can really be anywhere. And I found that some of the people that I worked with were doing their learning on the bus on the way into work on the morning, and that makes me happy. And working with the brain. I think that chatbots are great for the way we work in terms of our brain, in that it's really great for retrieval opportunities. This is one why I did basically the takeaways chatbot, because it helped people retrieve the things that they learned at a conference. And if you think about the fact that once we get 3 instances of retrieval, we really start to remember things, you can easily schedule and automate this for people through a chatbot by just giving them those retrieval opportunities that just kind of live inside their text messaging platform. You can consider, for example, how he asked about how many notifications that person's getting and when you want to space that out, but you can set that all up and just let the chatbot do it for you. One thing that I always recommend when you're designing for a mobile phone is if you're still one of those lucky people that has an office or a cubicle, get what we call in Canada a recipe card and just paste that up on the wall of your cubicle so that you're always thinking, this is the size of screen I'm designing for. This is, for me, a good reminder, because if the chatbot responds to the user with a super long text, that's not going to fit in their screen. Right? And so this is, for me, is just a simple way for me to think, okay, that's the size of screen I'm designing for, not a big 16-inch Samsung HD like crazy thing. So that's one thing that I like to do. And I also like that in that small screen, it forces me to be more focused and more precise with the learning for the learner. And I think that can sometimes be better for people. It's simpler, and it gets to the point, and it gives them the value that they need as quickly as possible and frictionless. So, which modern workplace learning challenges could a chatbot help you address? Here's a few examples. I like to say that these days we're dealing with the untethered modern learner, the person that's not tied to the office or tied to a certain device, and how do we reach these people? Another challenge we have is engagement and stickiness, that they keep coming back and they keep engaging with that learning, that it's frictionless learning experience. What I mentioned also, retrieval and performance support, these are challenges for us, and learning that's on demand and just in time. So consider with this and what you're building and designing, how are you addressing these learning challenges, and could a chatbot help with one of these challenges that you're having? I find, for example, that with the frictionless piece, that's one of the main reasons I started digging into and exploring chatbots, is because I found, just in my experience, that I had too many clicks and taps, and too many tabs and pages for me to get to things, and it was frustrating me, and so I appreciated something like this. So for example, very simple thing that I started doing when I first used chatbots was I just get the weather. I would get the weather report at 7 a.m. and then at 9 p.m. And so it just automatically came at 7. I would see, okay, it's going to snow today, it's going to be cold, whatever, great. I didn't have to go into an app or ask Google or Alexa or whatever. It just came to me. And it's very simple, but for me it was just nice and convenient. And then at 9 p.m. I would find out what the weather is the next day. So something like that is why I started getting into this, because I just liked that frictionless, easy way of learning something about what the weather was going to be. So I talk about all this, and then some people are like, I could never do this in my organization. Well, maybe you can't. But I like to just challenge you with this idea that I heard at that Agile conference I referred to before. One of the speakers mentioned this idea of contagious change, and I really liked it. And basically what he was saying is that you can start with one person or one team, and if it works for them and it's successful for them, then maybe you can go to the second team or person, and so on. And what will usually happen is, if you're giving that first team or person something that's valuable for them, that they really like and is improving their performance at work, other people around them are going to notice anyway, and then they'll want to jump on board, and then hopefully you'll get that contagious change that you're hoping for. Start small. You don't have to go into your company on Monday and say, I'm going to build a chatbot for 200 people and everybody's going to use this. You don't have to start that way. You can just start with a couple of people and say, hey, let's try this out and see what happens. And if it doesn't work for you, then you don't continue. But if it works for you, see if it spreads and give it a try. So I mentioned this already. This is the weather chatbot that I started using. This is the most popular and most successful chatbot on Facebook Messenger to date. It is called Poncho, P-O-N-C-H-O. You can see the name there in blue. And it just gives you the weather, but it also is sarcastic and a little bit I don't know, sometimes it's quite hilarious, actually. So I liked it because it gave me the weather, but it also made me laugh or giggle in the morning and start my day with a smile. And because of that, because it's providing value for people in an easy, convenient way and giving them a smile and making the weather a little bit fun, it's the most successful chatbot on Messenger. So if you're using Facebook Messenger and you've never tried out a chatbot before, I recommend to people to start with Poncho, because it's just really simple. You can give it like a few days, a week, and see what you think, and then you can have an experience with a chatbot. So what you would do in Messenger is you would just go in and search. You can search for chatbots in Messenger, and basically you just get started with it, and he'll give you, yeah, it's that one there. It's probably funny what he said already, right? It can be quite hilarious, actually. Excuse me. So just quickly, because I know we're getting down on time here, I would like to show you in real time my favorite bot currently that's in Messenger. It's called WoBot, W-O-E-B-O-T. Is that too small? Do I need to magnify? No, it's fine. So this is similar to what I designed. The WoBot, you'll see here, it always gives you buttons. In Facebook, you can create buttons that directs the user so that there's more control over the experience, because otherwise, It would be a little crazy. So what WoBot is it's a chatbot that helps people keep basically mentally balanced. It's a mental health-based chatbot out of Stanford with research behind it. I absolutely love it. I use it almost every day, and it's asking me to check in. I didn't check in yesterday because I was totally enjoying Persian food last night with Shannon and some people. But you can say reschedule or snooze. I don't want to do this right now, but let's say, hi, WoBot, and I want to start right now. So ask me, what are you doing just now? Speaking to people. I'll just do it simple. Then it will respond. Tell me how you're feeling today. I'm feeling great, so I'll hit the smile. That's wonderful. I'm really glad to hear it. And then I say, happy days. I agree with WoBot because it doesn't really give me a choice. So you know the way we often talk about distorted thoughts, which I have talked about with WoBot before. We have worked through distorted thoughts. And I say, yes, I do. Well, sometimes people say to me, hey, WoBot, what if the problems I'm facing are not caused by these distorted thoughts you're always mentioning? What if my problems are real? Interesting. This got me thinking about the differences between depression and healthy sadness. Differences? Yep. Do you want me to tell you about them? Sure. Don't have time. Maybe later. Let's say sure. We have a bit of time. Depression always results from a distortion, while sadness is an emotion that results from a negative event, which we have a realistic perception of. And he's going to keep going. For example, say you have experienced some form of loss, whether it be personal, physical, or emotional. And you said to yourself, I will miss this from my life. I really loved it. It was important to me because... And it keeps going. So basically, I can see already what's happening is WoBot is teaching me about a new thing now. We're going beyond distorted thoughts into something else. And this is what this chatbot has been like from the beginning. It has taught me things. Some of it I've already known, but some new stuff about distorted thoughts, about should statements, about quite a few things, and then it builds on it. And it will say, remember that thing we did last week? And if you say no, then it will remind you and bring that back to you again. Sometimes it sends me to videos, sometimes it sends me to links. A lot of times the learning just lives right here in Messenger for me. It takes sometimes, depends on the thing, about 10 minutes to learn, sometimes 5. Sometimes it just does a check-in to make sure that I'm doing okay, that I'm not on autopilot, basically. This is what I like about it, that it doesn't allow me to just be on autopilot. And I think, for me, I love it. I recommend it to tons of people, and it's been really helpful for me to just stay balanced and stay in kind of not on autopilot. I've struggled with PTSD and depression, so something like this for me is really fantastic. It's frictionless, it's easy, it lives in Messenger where you see I already live with my friends, and I learn stuff, and it just helps me check in with myself on a daily basis. It's amazing, it's free. If you use Messenger, I highly recommend this bot. So that's an example of how it works in real time. This one has buttons, as I said, to control the conversation so that I don't respond in a way that breaks the bot. So, but it works for me, so give it a shot if you're interested. Okay, that's good. I've got some time for questions, which I was hoping for. So any questions? Yes?
Could you give us some examples of AI that you use in your chatbot?
So he's asking examples of AI that I use in my chatbot. So as I've said, I shy away from that. I don't know if you've heard the story of Microsoft's chatbot Tay, T-A-Y. If you haven't, Google it. It was a disaster for them. They hooked up AI and they're like, oh, we have machine learning and AI with this chatbot and it's going to be able to answer anything and it's like a real human. And then, of course, people always want to try to break the bot. And so people started throwing stuff at it, and basically what they did is they purposefully tweaked the algorithm behind the scenes by sending it certain keywords and things that it started responding back to people in racist ways. And so Microsoft had to shut it down immediately. And they've not done anything like that since, and nobody else has either because it went so wrong. So personally, I believe, and the guy that owns Mobile Coach Vince also believes, that AI is not where it should be yet to be able to respond to us just no matter what we throw at it. It's just not there yet. So I personally don't use it because I don't want an experience like Tay, where one of my users gets something racist or something thrown at them. That's beyond my control. So I don't use it. Yes?
Had a question through Twitter.
Oh, a question through Twitter.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ooh, I love it.
Person obviously couldn't see you demonstrating WoBot, so are there any other examples of chatbots helping and supporting people specifically? This person's commenting on one which they saw at a bank was using, and it was withdrawn because it was so frustrating for people to use. Have you got any other examples of chatbots that are particularly successful?
So the Domino's Pizza one actually is rather successful. The Uber chatbot. There are some good financial ones. Ones that have been most successful are tied to retail and marketing, like Sephora, Zappos shoes. Those kind of chatbots are used a lot because people love to shop. There are some support ones in the States that are tied to mental health that people are using. I don't remember the name right now, but you guys want to reach out to me, I'll be able to give you a bigger list for sure.
Thank you.
Any other question? If you have questions, you can come up to me after. I'm not disappearing. My flight is not till Sunday, so I'm here. I'm on Twitter all the time, so if you want to message me there or just send me an email, I'll be happy to continue the conversation with you. I encourage you just to test it out. Try Poncho, try WoBot, and just see what you think. And if it's not for you and your organization, no big deal, right? Like, I don't think this is a solution for everybody and everything, but it can be a solution for a number of things, and it's worth experimenting with. It can be quite fun, actually. And don't be afraid of the build. Even though you're not a programmer or coder or very tech savvy, there's lots of stuff out there to be able to help you. And there are also now courses on Udemy and places like that where you can learn to build a chatbot yourself if you're so inclined. So thanks so much. I'm so glad you guys were here. Have a safe travel if you're going back anywhere that's not London. And thanks so much.
Thank you, Jeremy. Good job.
Thanks.
Thank you.